And I think this is one of the most powerful tools, the underrated. And not only do myself think about like this kind of like naming ecosystem that's within the near, but Vitalik Buterin said the most underrated feature is the ENS system and the name domain system that is embedded within Ethereum has so much potential. Let's figure out what's going on within the near ecosystem and Namebase. So I want to bring on our next sponsor, if he's available. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm Brian. I usually have for a pre-call. I don't want to mess up your name. And your name is
Tieshun.
Tieshun. Cool, dude. I'm super excited about Namebase. I'm super excited to hear about what you're talking about, what you guys have going on, and then get into the bounty. I think what I can do is if you have a presentation, I can jump off and then come back and ask questions at the end, or I can stay on and help like forward the conversation. Your call.
Yeah, happy for you to stay on.
Okay, cool.
Probably going to just be talking for most of it. Might do a quick screen share in the middle, and then usually get a lot of questions for this kind of stuff. So probably leave the end some ample time for questions.
Absolutely. Okay, let's do it. Tieshun, I will give it to you.
Cool, awesome. So yeah, hello, I'm the CEO of Namebase, and basically you can think of us as Coinbase for Handshake. Handshake is a decentralized naming protocol. It's its own layer 1 blockchain that allows you to register top level domain names on the blockchain. This is something that most people aren't familiar with, but you do use it every day. So every time you type in google.com or youtube.com or twitter.com, you're using the domain name system. And the URL is actually broken up into multiple parts. There's the .com, which is the top level domain, and then Google, which is the second level domain. You put them together, they make the entire domain name. And the interesting thing about how the internet works is that this is actually a hierarchical system. So there's actually an organization called VeriSign. It's a for-profit company, and they own the .com TLD, and they basically get to control who gets what second level domain. And then actually above them is another organization called ICANN, which actually controls who gets what TLD. So for example, there's .ai, .io, .net, .org. These are all different TLDs owned by different and managed by different entities. And this entire system is basically what the internet runs on. And it's technology that's been running for it's 40 years old, hasn't really changed too much. And there are myriad problems with it that I can get into. But effectively, what Handshake is it's a decentralized alternative to this infrastructure. And what we do at Namebase is we make it very, very easy for a new user to come on and get their own Handshake name and start playing around with the ecosystem. Yeah, so that's a quick overview of Handshake and Namebase. And actually, my presentation today is more so around talking about why DeFi needs decentralized DNS in order to be truly decentralized. And it's actually something that's a little bit more pertinent to like the current timing in terms of like where we are in the market. So again, I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview of this. Might be a little bit technical, like stop me if there's anything that's confusing or if you want me to dig into things a little bit more. But if you think about DeFi today, like let's say you're going to Uniswap. You go to uniswap.exchange, right? You type it into your browser and you get this website, this interface that you can go and interact with the Uniswap smart contract on. And the reason why this is decentralized finance is because the smart contract is on the Ethereum blockchain, right? So like the backend is decentralized. Whereas normally when you're going to a typical website like Amazon, the backend, all the business logic, it's hosted on Amazon's own servers, so that they can change things or do whatever they want, and you're just interacting with it through your browser. Whereas with DeFi, you're actually interacting with a smart contract directly on the blockchain. So this is why it's called DeFi. However, the aspect of this that's not decentralized is the beginning part that I said, which is when you go to the interface through uniswap.exchange, you're actually accessing a centralized front end that's controlled by Uniswap. The domain name, right? Uniswap.exchange, they bought that domain name, or they actually, they rent it from the .exchange TLD, but they have access to this domain. And if they wanted to, they could actually serve you a different front end, it could be a phishing site. It could be, if they get hacked, it could be a phishing site. It could be redirecting funds to another smart contract. And also it's a risk because there's the regulatory pressure. That's why Uniswap recently in the news, is pretty widely known, but they actually had to start blocking from being traded on Uniswap.exchange. So what we're seeing happening here is regulators are basically seeing DeFi and they're like, okay, the backends are decentralized, but the front ends and how people access them is actually still centralized. And this is actually a point of weakness for the entire system. And this is why now you're increasingly going to see more and more token gated lists or white lists. Even if a protocol is fully decentralized and the upgrades are controlled by a governance token, if the majority of the users are all going through a centralized domain name to access the site, it's still arguably very centralized, and it's still something that's very susceptible to not only hacks but also regulatory pressure and all sorts of issues that come with that. So this is the state of the market today. And effectively what we're trying to do with Handshake is to actually enable fully decentralized applications. And you can do this by actually using a decentralized domain name that is stored on the blockchain, controlled by a private key, allows people to update the records permissionlessly by submitting a transaction to the blockchain. This is the new architecture that we're pushing to shift towards through Handshake. And I can talk about the adoption and the strategy there and everything that's been happening, but this is effectively the problem and the solution as we see it today.
Cool. Let's get a little bit into some of the use cases, because I think everybody uses the DNS and domains, but some of the differentiation because of the decentralization, I get that's good. But what are some of the use cases that you can do now with the name system or the Handshake name service that you couldn't do previously with the domain name service?
Yeah, definitely. So the key thing here is that on Handshake, you actually get to own your own top level domain name. So it's, you're not buying, for example, I'm not buying tieshun.com on Handshake. I actually get to register .tieshun on Handshake. So you actually get the thing that's on the right of the dot. And that's really amazing because normally if you want to get that in a traditional domain name system, it would cost, well, one, now because ICANN has blocked new registrations. But two, even when it was possible, it would cost $200,000 in application fees, which is actually not even the fee to get the name. It's literally an application fee. So if you don't get the name, you still lose that money. And then about $1 million to actually go in and win a new top level domain name. They would auction it out. So it costs about $1 million to win a top level domain name at auction. And so just to actually have that capability, it would cost you millions of dollars, and also just operationally months of labor. So you have employee costs and regulatory costs and all of that. So it's something that's just like very, very difficult. Whereas with Handshake, the system is there's a completely on-chain auction system that anyone can participate in. And to date, we've had over 2 million top-level domain names registered by normal everyday users, enthusiasts all around the world. They're registering the names. And they're creating websites with it. They can even go and just like VeriSign, they own .com and they're selling subdomains to customers. You can actually go and sell your own second level names and create a revenue generating business off of that. And that's actually something that we've seen a lot of users do as well.
Okay, so I create my Handshake name. Let's say Brian Colligan, Brian Colligan. How do I when I refer to people, do I get to redirect to a website? Is there a wallet connected? Is that because I've seen some other kind of like experiments like the .eth, right? Where there's like a wallet connected as well. So I can send Ethereum on the Ethereum network to the .eth and it would come into my wallet if I have that all kind of integrated. Do you guys have a similar aspect like that? Or how does that work?
Yeah, totally. So the easiest way to access a traditional website through Handshake name is actually through a gateway. And actually, I can actually show on my screen a quick demo of that. I don't know how to switch it over. I think I'm already sharing my screen.
Let's switch it for you.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So let me just go, as I mentioned, I have .tieshun on Handshake. And what we have is a Handshake gateway at hns.to. And what you can do here is I can just go to tieshun.hns.to. And this is a fully decentralized website. It's actually stored on Saya's Skynet. We also have an AR weave integration and also an IPFS integration in the works. And this is basically like a decentralized link tree where both the storage of the front end, right? Everything you see here on my screen, the storage of this is on a decentralized storage network. And then the resolution of this, accessing the website is going through the gateway, which is routing through Handshake behind the scenes. And so you have my site, you have, Nick Carter also has a site as well. This is his decentralized link. And this is actually a very easy way. You can just access this on a normal web, right? It's just hns.to, and you can access any Handshake name through this gateway. And the other use case that's really interesting, I'll show just two more after this, is one is you can also use your Handshake name as a decentralized username. So we actually created a forum called Name Your News that basically allows you to go and use your Handshake name to authenticate to a website. It's kind of similar to logging in with your MetaMask wallet. You can do the same thing with your Handshake name, except you have a username automatically attached. So here, let me just go in with Tieshun. And I'm just going to go authenticate. And now I am logged in as Tieshun on Namer News.
That's very
and then
cool.
Finally, I also mentioned, again, you can also create a business around your TLD. And if you have a good one, you can sell subdomains to it, right? So here I'm on Namecheap, which if you've ever bought a domain before, you might be familiar with. They're actually the #2 largest domain registrar after GoDaddy. And if you actually search for a .p domain, which does not exist in the ICANN system, but it does exist on Handshake, you can actually directly on Handshake. So what we're seeing is we've already gotten a lot of industry adoption. Literally the #2 domain registrar in the world has already started supporting Handshake, and they are actually selling their own Handshake domain here. This is not a domain that you can buy through a traditional domain registrar or traditional domain system. It's actually only supported on Handshake, which is super cool to see that there's this much industry adoption.
It's very cool. And so with a completely decentralized internet, you don't have removal, you don't have, and especially if you go into the IPFS and Arweave, essentially it's like pure freedom. It's not controlled by the ICANN or DNS. It's really cool. Like, congratulations. Like, how long have you been working on this?
Yeah, 3 years now, and it's been live. So the network's been live since February 2020. So about a year and a half, year and 10 months maybe.
It's amazing. Okay, but you have a bounty today. Let's get into the bounty. Right?
Oh, I'm actually sorry. What's the bounty? I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, so this is a speaking session. Got it. So the Generation Crypto essentially is a competition where we were putting up bounties and competitions around marketing bounties for individuals to basically compete for marketing, helping market different aspects of the products. So I'm wrong. Sorry about that. This is a speaking session. But a lot of the people that came with companies and projects, they would come on and talk about essentially their product and then what different types of marketing challenges that they have. And most of our audience is marketers and agencies that are looking to break into crypto. The event, we have $1.2 million in bounties available from different companies. So that's my fault.
Okay, I can just come up with a bounty on the spot. That's easy to.
Do you have any marketing challenges or problems?
Yeah, let's see. I think in general, there's awareness is something that's really tricky with this kind of technology. With something like Handshake, it's something that's like fairly technical, so it's kind of hard to onboard people and get them to understand what Handshake is. But what we found that's really interesting is after people have gotten into the ecosystem, after they've kind of gotten over the learning curve, they are usually very sticky within the ecosystem. They stay within the community, they create sites, they're very active in our Discord and our forums. And so obviously one of the consistent challenges is just how do we actually educate people at scale? And so there's like one quick challenge, really, and the easiest thing is, once people have actually gotten their Handshake names and they've created a website and they have the tokens and they've used the product, then it usually really clicks and it's pretty easy for people to intuit. It's like, oh, this is just a domain name, well, a top level domain name that's decentralized. So as a quick bounty, what we can do is if any of the marketers in the audience go onto Namebase and get a name and set up a D-Link, which is a product that's we basically that interface that I showed you with my like decentralized link tree. It's a product that we created that basically lets you click and point and click and create a link tree profile on a fully decentralized page. So if anyone does that and sets up D-Link and then you tweet at Namebase HQ, whoever gets the most likes and retweets on that, I'll send you 1,000 HNS.
What's 1,000 HNS worth to a day?
It's probably like $500, $300, $500.
Okay, so let's walk into this bounty again. So set up a link tree, right? And then you can connect your HNS to link tree. Your name.
Yeah. Oh, actually, so we have like a decentralized link tree product directly on the site. Yeah. So all you have to do is literally go to namebase.io and use the product, and we'll send the winner. There's also even actually once you set up the site, we actually have a link that takes you to Twitter and lets you tweet at Namebase HQ. So literally all you have to do is just go through the product. Don't do anything extra. Click on that button, click on tweet, and by the end of by tomorrow at noon Eastern time, whoever has the most, I'll just send 1,000 HNS to.
Okay, that's amazing. All right, you heard it here. We just came up with a bounty on the spot. Cool. What should I ask you that I haven't asked about yet?
Yeah, so a common question that people ask is, what's the difference between Handshake and ENS or unstoppable domains, or on Solana there's I think, and that's usually a really great question because it's very confusing because these are all different naming protocols. And ENS very recently has gotten a lot more awareness from people just because of the token airdrop. That was like very, very exciting to people. So I think that the easiest way to frame it is if you look at something like ENS or like Bonfida on .sol, or there's another one on each blockchain network. I think it's like Polka domains or something like that. Each on Polkadot, each blockchain network has its own on-chain naming system. Typically, what that ends up becoming is basically like an on-chain username system that everyone kind of starts adopting. So .eth is like if you are on OpenSea or Wearable or whatever, a lot of times they'll surface this as your username. You can start using that. And it's the same thing on Solana and Polkadot. And so if the easiest way to think about those systems is those are really on-chain username systems. Handshake is specifically focused on decentralizing DNS, really decentralizing the URL that you enter into your browser. And the reason why it even exists in the first place and why it was architected the way it is, why it focuses on top-level domain names, is because the way that DNS works is it's a hierarchical system. So if you have a TLD that's not at the root level, that's not decentralized at the root level, then you basically have a not decentralized system. You have a centralized system. So anything where it's like, the TLD is still controlled by ICANN, which is the governing authority over traditional domain names, as long as they're controlling the top level, capitalized DNS. So what Handshake does is it's specifically focused on decentralizing the top level domain names so that the architecture from there on out can be decentralized under that. And that's really the easiest way to understand Handshake versus other naming systems.
That's cool. Fully decentralized. Nobody can take it down. That's a weird question, but like, how could someone take it down? Are you guys like supported and decentralized enough, like where like all the different nodes and validators are engaged? Like now that you have the token out there, is it decentralized enough in a way where, let's say the organization went away, the protocol and the open sourceness would still live on?
Yeah, so actually that's a great question. So the initial creators behind Handshake, and Namebase.io is not the creator of Handshake. We actually came on board to make Handshake very easy to use. That's why we ended up building, basically Coinbase and Namecheap for Handshake. The initial creators of it, it was actually Joseph Poon who invented the Lightning Network.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so very well-known name, and also Andrew Lee from Purse, and there's another Andrew Lee as well. These were the initial creators, and that organization, they really intended for this to be a decentralized naming system that the entire world could rely on. And DNS is something that's very, very important for across the entire internet, across all governments and jurisdictions and all of that. So they basically went the route of max decentralization from the beginning. The organization that created Handshake, the Handshake Foundation, they wrote the initial code and they initially raised funding for Handshake, literally just to give it a token price and get stakeholders on board. All of the funding to different nonprofit organizations like the EFF and Apache and GNU. And they actually dissolved the organization once the token launched. So the entire ecosystem around everything that's happened in the last 18 months after Handshake launch has literally been a complete grassroots effort. There's been no involvement from the original Handshake team, as you can say. So it's already probably one of the most decentralized organizations, decentralized protocols out there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So if people wanted to get a hold of you and get involved in Handshake, is there anything that you're looking for help with in Namebase?
Yeah, I think honestly the best thing is to just join the community, join Discord. If you go to namebase.io, try out getting a name and set it up. One of the things that's very common within Handshake is if you see on Twitter a name slash, like I'm on Twitter as Tieshun slash, for example, that is a reference to a Handshake name. So you'll see, people like Mike slash, Sajan slash, etc. These are all people within the Handshake community. So really the best way to get involved is go and create a website, set your username to your name slash on Twitter, and just join the Discord. You can find all of this information on our website, namebase.io, and that's the best way to get involved.
Tieshun, thank you so much. This has been I've been a learning experience for me. Love what you guys are doing. Love the decentralization of HNS and I see like tons of aspects and tons of different use cases. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
Great. Awesome. Happy to be here.